Hi there, welcome to Nonsense Whisky. My name's FinPF, and on today's episode we've got something that I would call pretty damn special. Now, fans of this show will probably know who the Crowded Barrel are, and therefore will probably know who the Whisky Vault are and the Whisky Tribe. If you don't know, then they are the biggest whiskey tube channels that are currently out there. It used to be Ralphie. Ralphie was recently overtaken by the Whisky Vault and their kind of second sister channel, the Whisky Tribe. Now you should go and check those guys out because they are just massive. They've got a good production team behind them as well, so they've got decent values, but they really do have a cool thing going on there. Now at first glance, if you do watch their stuff, then you look at their comments and their Facebook page, and there's all this stuff going on about them being a cult. Hilarious, I think, but you could be forgiven for seeing how that would come about by looking at just how fanatical their fans are, literally the definition of the word fan. But I went out there in October, if you're a fan of this channel, and you can see the video that I made of that last October. But I went out there to see what they're all about as part of their Whiskey Tuber event. They've got this ball they do every year. While I was there, I decided I was going to pick up a bottle of this because you can only get bottles of this Eleanor in their distillery. That's it. They don't ship anywhere. They won't send it anywhere for you. They will allow somebody to come pick it up for you, so you can buy it online, say, and then somebody can come and get it for you. But really, the only way you can get hold of this is when you go to their site. So it made sense for me to get a bottle of this while I went out there. It was one of two bottles I picked up. The other one was the Old Forester 1920, which was an awesome bourbon. Let's give you a bit of information about this, shall we? Because you'd be forgiven for not knowing anything about it at all. They don't make their own whiskey yet, although they do have a still now. So they are sort of making it, but they don't sell their own whiskey. That's the right way to think of it. This particular bottling and all the ones before this in the Eleanor range are sourced from MGP in Indiana. They buy the liquid, ship it across, and then they age it in barrels in Texas where their site is. Now their site is a distillery that's based on the grounds of the marketing school that they're all about. This is how it all started out, actually. It was a marketing school originally, and actually Daniel Whittington decided he was going to do a whiskey tasting for some of the guys who had been there, and then this whole whiskey marketing school has spawned out of it, then the channel and such forth, and now it's this huge entity, and they just, I have to say, they're just doing wonderful stuff. The different chapters have different vibes about them. So a lot of the initial ones, especially, I think it was 1, 2, 3, skipping 4, then 5, 6, and 7. They were all based on the flavour profiles. And then the other ones, so 4, and then 8 and 9, and then I think 10. I'm not sure what's happening after that. But they're all based on different cask types being used. And we can talk about things like the combined barrels, ex-wine barrels. This is actually the first one they've done in used oak. So can't be called bourbon, although it is a bourbon mash. We're talking 75% corn, 21% rye, and 4% malted barley. So technically, it's a bourbon mash, but because they're using used barrels, it can't be a bourbon. Interesting thing though, because you would think that if they were using used barrels, specifically ex-bourbon used barrels, that you would get less of a flavour from it. But I think actually, on reflection of trying this, you will see when I go through my tasting notes, as basic as mine are, it's not putting all of that oak into it. When you use new barrels, when you come out after 4 years, which I believe this is, something like 50 months, something like that, 4 years, something like that, 4 or 5 years, then you're getting a really thick oak-led, tannin-led flavour. Enough about the actual bottle itself. Lies. Before we get into the tasting, we should talk about what I've got actually here. Because I've said this is chapter 9. Did I even say it was chapter 9? If I didn't, it's chapter 9. This is chapter 9.4. All the information down the side here. Chapter 9.4, and my bottle is bottle number 44, all handwritten. This is a 750 milliliter bottle, which I know to the American guys watching this is pretty normal for you. But over in the UK, we only get 700, so it's nice to have that extra bit on there. And the ABV, absolute monster, it's a 56.85% or a 113.7 proof, depending on where you are in the world. This cost me I think $50 dead on, or if not just shy of $50. So about 45, 46 pounds, something like that, 44 pounds. I have to say, a complete bargain for what I got in the end. Let's get on to the actual tasting notes and see what we've got in the glass, shall we? Okay, so we know it's a bourbon-related mash bill. We know it's been aged in ex-bourbon barrels, so definitely getting vanillas on this. We are getting oak, but it's a very understated version of that. Because of the 21% rye, I pick up lots of rye spices on this. It's a very nice nose. Very creamy. It's not a very good word to use, but it's true. Let's try it on the palate. So again, lots more of those kind of bourbon flavours that you'd be expecting to get from something that would be like this, but it's a lot more understated. And I actually think that the rye elements get to come to the surface a little bit more. I'm not the biggest fan of rye, but I like it when it's done quite well. And this, it just marries all into one awesome flavour profile. Let's have a touch more. Definitely those kind of rye notes, but the butteriness of the corn is coming through. Cinnamon, kind of spices forward on that. On the back end, I may have been being led by this, but when I asked for more information about what went into this bottling, single cask bottling I might add, because it's a 9.4, this is the 4th time they've used a used barrel, so single cask. But there's kind of melons and that kind of fruitiness on the back end of that I quite enjoy. Finish is absolutely massive. Now, I have to say, I think the majority of people watching this won't be able to have access to this. I've got a big following in the United States, and that's cool, but obviously, as you guys know, the United States is a massive place. I mean, I've only been over there twice now. The second time was to Texas. Texas is so unbelievably massive for a British guy like me. We live on a very small island in comparison, to the point where like I can get to Scotland in about 5 hours of straight driving. Whereas when we went to Texas in October, Scotch Test Dummies drove 10 hours just to be down there, which is just, I've never been in a car for that amount of time. So I think if you're in Texas, you kind of owe it to yourself to get down there. And one of the things I picked up on, to sidetrack a little bit from what these guys are doing, there's this whole Texas Whiskey Trail thing that's going on now. If you're interested in that, then you should go and check out some links. I'll drop it in the description if I remember. But go and check out the Texas Whiskey Trail, and you can earn points for just going to visit distilleries and visiting them within a certain month or year or whatever, and you can get t-shirts and all this kind of awesome stuff. And I wish I would have had time to go and do that sort of thing. But this is on that trail. And just remember, you can only get this from the distillery. I know that's generally a marketing vibe, you know, like if it was so awesome, why couldn't you get it anywhere else? But they don't need to sell it anywhere else. They're funded quite well, it seems, and it's genuinely worth it. I'm very happy with this whiskey. I wish I would have been able to get more different bottles there, but they only had the 9.4 and the 9.3 at the time I was there, so I didn't bother getting the two. You know, they seemed pretty similar to me. But I did get to try a few of their other ones while I was there, and they were pretty spectacular. I'm really impressed with what they're doing. Hopefully, I'll be able to get more bottles of it in the future, but we will see. Let me know if you tried this below. Let me know which bottles you've got, which chapters, and see if there's any differences. You can have a little bit of a conversation in the comments below. But that's my impression of the Eleanor. Very impressed, and I think the price point is pretty exceptional. Definitely something that should be on everyone's radar.